If you love thrilling mysteries, step into the unknown. Join the hunt, uncover the secrets, and feel the suspense. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and be part of the VeeQuest journey. The rain came down in a steady, silvery curtain that afternoon, blurring the world beyond the glass. Clara Bennett pulled her coat tighter and hurried along the cobblestone street until she reached the dim little shop tucked between a bookstore and a shuttered bakery. The faded sign above the door read, Harper's Antiques, Est. 1897. Clara had passed it a dozen times before but never gone in. Today, something compelled her. Maybe it was the flicker of a light through the dusty window or the faint sound of a ticking clock that seemed to call her name through the rain. As she pushed open the creaking door, a bell chimed overhead, a sound both welcoming and weary. Inside, time itself seemed to stand still. The air smelled of varnish, candle wax, and age. Every corner was crowded with memories, gilded mirrors reflecting ghostly images, oil paintings of solemn faces, grandfather clocks murmuring softly. It was the perfect place for a journalist like Clara, who specialized in writing about the unusual, the forgotten, and the strange. "Good afternoon," croaked a voice from the shadows. An old man emerged, tall but bent, his eyes pale and watery. His name tag, pinned crookedly to his vest, read Mr. Harper. "Looking for anything in particular, miss?" Clara smiled. "Just browsing. I'm a journalist, Clara Bennett, from the London Chronicle. I'm researching a piece on haunted antiques." At the word haunted, Mr. Harper's expression flickered. "Then you've come to the right place," he said dryly. "This shop has seen its share of stories." As she wandered deeper, her eyes caught something peculiar at the back of the room, a large wooden chair sitting alone under a weak lamp. Unlike everything else, it seemed recently polished. The wood was dark oak, carved with twisting vines, tiny roses, and faces so lifelike they seemed to move in the shifting light. "What's that one?" she asked, walking closer. Mr. Harper's face turned pale. "That piece," he said softly, "is not for sale." Clara tilted her head. "Why not?" "It came from Crowhurst Manor in Sussex," he murmured. "Belonged to Lady Amelia Crowhurst, the last of her line. When she died, her staff swore her voice could still be heard in that very chair, whispering in the dark." Clara's heart raced. "A haunted chair. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for. May I?" Before he could object, she sat down. The moment she did, the temperature in the shop dropped. A chill crawled up her spine. The ticking clocks seemed to fall silent. Then, from somewhere impossibly close, perhaps from inside the wood itself, came a whisper. It was faint, fragile, and unmistakably female. "Find the locket, he hid it." Clara froze. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Did you hear that?" she whispered. Mr. Harper blinked in confusion. "Hear what?" The voice. A woman's voice. He shook his head, visibly shaken. "I told you not to sit there." Clara stood quickly, her pulse racing. "Who hid what? What locket?" Mr. Harper refused to meet her eyes. "Best you leave that chair alone, Miss Bennett. Some things from the past aren't meant to be disturbed." But the journalist in her couldn't stop thinking. As she left the shop, the whisper echoed in her mind, "Find the locket, he hid it." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but the sound of the whisper seemed to linger in her apartment. She played back her recording from the shop. She had left her phone running, out of habit, and near the end, faint but clear, she heard the same whisper. The same plea. Find the locket, he hid it. Her heart pounded. She needed answers. The next morning, she returned to Harper's Antiques, her notebook ready. But something was wrong. The shop's windows were dark. A large sheet of plywood was nailed across the door, and a piece of paper flapped against it in the cold wind. It read in uneven letters. Closed indefinitely due to the sudden death of Mr. Harper. Clara stood frozen in the street, the echo of the whisper ringing in her ears once more. This time, it felt less like a ghost's call, and more like a warning. The next morning, London felt heavier than usual. Fog rolled low over the rooftops, swallowing the city in a dull, gray silence. Clara Bennett stood at the edge of her bed, staring at the headline glowing on her laptop screen, "Antique shop owner found dead in mysterious circumstances." The article didn't say much, only that Mr. Arthur Harper, 78, had been discovered lifeless inside his shop late last night. No signs of struggle. No cause of death determined. But Clara's instincts screamed that it was no coincidence. The whisper, the chair, and now this. She reread her notes. Crowhurst Manor, Sussex. That was the clue. If she wanted answers, she'd have to go there. By afternoon, she was driving through the English countryside, fields blurring by under a storm-heavy sky. The closer she got to Sussex, the darker the clouds became, until finally, a lonely stretch of road led her to a crumbling iron gate with a faded crest, Crowhurst Manor. Clara pushed it open. The hinges groaned like something alive. Beyond the gate stood the manor, enormous and neglected, its windows blank and black like eyes that had seen too much. She parked her car and stepped out, boots crunching over gravel. The air smelled of wet moss and rot. "Can I help you, miss?" The voice startled her. A woman in her 50s stood at the door, wearing a gray shawl and holding a candle lantern. Her face was kind but wary. "I'm Clara Bennett. I'm a journalist from London. I'm looking into the history of this estate, and something called the Whispering Chair." The woman's face paled at the words. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly. "Some stories are meant to stay buried." But when Clara pressed, the woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Wren, the caretaker, reluctantly allowed her inside. The interior was a museum of dust and silence. The grand staircase sagged in the middle, portraits hung crookedly on the walls, and a single chandelier swayed gently though there was no breeze. "Lady Amelia Crowhurst died in this house, Mrs. Wren said, her candlelight flickering across the hallway. "They say she was poisoned. Her husband vanished soon after. The servants left, one by one. I've kept it standing since." "Do you know anything about the chair?" Clara asked. Mrs. Wren nodded slowly. "It was Lady Amelia's favorite. She used to sit by the fire and write letters for hours. But after she died, people heard her voice through it, begging someone to find a locket." Clara's heart jumped. "The same thing I heard." Mrs. Wren frowned. "You've heard it too. I sat in the chair yesterday. It whispered to me. And the man who owned it, he's dead now." The caretaker's eyes widened. "Then it's begun again," she whispered. They moved toward the old study, the place where the chair had once sat. The room smelled faintly of lavender and something metallic, like rust or blood. A dark outline on the wooden floor showed where the chair used to be. Clara took out her recorder. "Do you know what this locket was?" "Only rumors," Mrs. Wren said. "They say Lady Amelia wore a gold locket given to her by her husband. After she died, it disappeared. Some believe it held a secret, proof of his betrayal, or perhaps her murder." Clara's pen froze mid-sentence. "And her husband vanished. Some say he fled abroad. Others think," she hesitated, "he never left this house." Thunder cracked outside, shaking the windows. Clara turned on her flashlight and scanned the walls. A large painting caught her eye, a portrait of Lady Amelia. Her face was delicate, her eyes hauntingly lifelike. And around her neck hung a small golden locket. "Do you know if this portrait has ever been removed?" Clara asked. Mrs. Wren shook her head. "Not in decades." Clara stepped closer. Something about the painting felt off. The corner of the frame was slightly loose. She reached up, pulled it gently, and behind the canvas, something glimmered faintly. It was a tiny brass key, wrapped in a yellowed scrap of ribbon. "What's that?" Mrs. Wren whispered. Clara smiled faintly. "Maybe the next piece of the puzzle." The sound of the rain outside grew heavier, drumming on the roof like impatient fingers. As they left the study, Clara felt a sudden draft sweep through the hallway. For a brief second, she thought she heard it again, that faint, breathy whisper. "Find the locket." She froze. Mrs. Wren turned. "What is it?" Clara swallowed. "She's still here." The caretaker's candle flickered violently, and went out. Darkness swallowed the hall. The darkness seemed to breathe around them. Clara's flashlight flickered, slicing through the shadows of the corridor in trembling bursts. Mrs. Wren gripped her arm tightly. "This house doesn't like visitors after dark," she whispered. Clara steadied her voice. "That voice, it's real. She's trying to tell us something. We can't leave yet." They returned to the study, where the outline of the chair still marked the floorboards. Clara knelt, brushing her hand across the wood. It felt uneven. "Mrs. Wren, has anyone ever lifted these floorboards?" "Not since I've been here," the caretaker said nervously. Clara used a small penknife from her bag to pry at the edge of one plank. It creaked open, releasing a musty, metallic smell. Beneath it lay a small wooden box covered in dust and cobwebs. She lifted it out carefully. The box was locked, and Clara knew instantly what the brass key from behind the painting was for. Her hands shook as she fitted it into the lock and turned. The lid creaked open. Inside was a delicate golden locket, its surface engraved with roses. Beside it lay a letter, the ink faded and brown with age. Clara unfolded it slowly and began to read aloud. Greater than my dearest Amelia. I never wished you harm, but your discovery has left me no choice. The truth you unearthed would ruin me, and everything we've built. Forgive me for what I must do tonight. The tea shall taste of peace, not poison. You will simply sleep, and I shall bury the secret where no one will ever find it. Edward. Mrs. Wren gasped. Her husband, he poisoned her. Clara's throat tightened, and then hid the evidence, the letter and the locket, beneath her chair. She turned the locket over. Inside was a miniature portrait, a woman's face, Lady Amelia's, and beside it, a small photograph of a young maid. Clara frowned. Who's this? Mrs. Wren hesitated. That's her sister. She worked here, in secret. The family disowned her because she married a servant. Lady Amelia kept her hidden for years. Clara stared at the faces in the locket. So Amelia's husband must have discovered the secret, and feared the scandal would destroy his name. As she spoke, the air in the room seemed to grow heavy. A soft wind stirred, though all the windows were closed. The candle on the desk sputtered to life again, glowing faintly without a match. Then came the whisper, closer than ever, clear as day. Thank you. Mrs. Wren clutched her chest. Did you? Clara nodded. She's free now. But even as relief flooded her chest, another thought struck her. Wait, if she's free, then why? A sharp crack echoed through the room. The floor beneath the chair's outline splintered suddenly, revealing a dark hole. Clara jumped back as the broken planks fell inward, exposing a small stone chamber beneath the study. What on earth? Mrs. Wren breathed. Clara shone her flashlight down into the opening. What she saw made her blood run cold. There, lying in a shallow grave of dirt and dust, was a human skeleton, still dressed in tattered remnants of a suit. A tarnished ring gleamed faintly on its finger. Clara crouched closer. The husband, she whispered. Edward Crowhurst. Mrs. Wren's face went pale. But they said he fled. He never did, Clara said grimly. She didn't just die, she fought back. The letter's words came rushing back. You will simply sleep, and I shall bury the secret. But what if the plan hadn't gone as he intended? What if Amelia had known, and turned the poison on him instead? The air grew colder, and for one fleeting moment, Clara could almost see her, the faint shimmering outline of Lady Amelia Crowhurst, standing beside the broken chair, her eyes sad but peaceful. The whisper came one final time, soft as breath. It's over. Then she vanished, leaving only silence and the faint scent of lavender. Clara replaced the letter and the locket inside the box and gently set it upon the floor beside the skeleton. You can rest now, she said quietly. By morning, the storm had passed. The police arrived after Mrs. Wren called them, and the discovery of Edward Crowhurst's remains made national headlines. Clara's article, The Whispering Chair, the manor that held its secrets, became the most read feature in the London Chronicle. Yet even with the mystery solved, one thing lingered in Clara's mind. The chair itself, the one that had whispered, was still missing. When she returned to the shop where it had last been seen, the building was empty, stripped bare. Only a single note lay on the floor, written in faded ink. The chair belongs where it began. Crowhurst Manor was sealed that week, the chair returned to its rightful place in the study, never to be moved again. And sometimes, when the wind howls through the Sussex hills, villagers say they can still hear a woman's voice echoing faintly through the broken windows of the old manor, not in sorrow, but in peace. Thank you.